Guys, today I want to talk about how to convert objects to JSON. Now, this is a skill that you definitely need if you're going to be working with RESTful web services. So, what you need to know how to do is find objects and make sure that they relate to the structure of JSON. Now, what I want to do in this video is show you how to convert objects to JSON from the ground up. And there's a few things that we need. We're going to be using the Eclipse IDE. We're also going to be using the JSON library, and the JSON library is just a library that's going to help us convert objects to JSON, and it also actually helps us convert JSON back to objects. That was very helpful. And another thing that we need is just a full understanding of JSON and how they relate to an object's construction. All right, so as you can see here, we have an object and then we have some JSON data over here. Now, when you're creating an object for JSON, you have to really take into account the structure of the JSON that you want to construct, because that's going to be very similar to the object, or pretty much the object, the object that you construct yourself. So, as you can see here in this JSON that we have here, we have two curly braces. And if you're familiar with JSON, these two curly braces here represent an object. All right. So inside of this object that we're going to be creating, there are going to be data members. So if you wanted to create an object of this, you would have to create an object, and then inside that object, we would have the data members ID, name, price, and tags. So for this ID, we would set the data type for that data member to int. The reason we're setting it to int is because this ID is associated with a value of a number, or a number value. And then for the next data member, we're going to go to our object and go public string name. Now the reason it's going to be a string is because this name is associated with a string value, and this is a string value because it's surrounded by quotes. And then for this price, we're going to create ourselves a float. The reason this is a float is because this number represents a float type value. And then for this last data member here, tags, we're going to create ourselves an array, or an array list. And those are going to be the data members that we would have to construct in an object if we want to create this particular type of JSON structure. All right, so hopefully this makes sense to you guys. So let's get right into the code. So I've already created a Java project, and I've already created my application object that you can see here, the app.java, and we have our main method here. So the first thing we want to do is add that JSON library that I was talking about in the slides. So I want to go up here to tutorial, which is the project, or whatever you've named your project, and then go to properties. And then I want to add an external jar. Now, before we even get to this part, actually, we have to go online and download the JSON jar. So to do that, you just go to Google, type in JSON jar all, and then from there, you just go to the first link that you see. And this is a page where you can actually download the JSON jar that we're going to need to convert our objects to JSON. All right, so this is the file right here. It's going to be a zip file. You just download it to your computer, unzip the file, and then you'll have that JSON all 1.9.0 jar on your computer. All right, so once you've done that, you want to go back to Eclipse. You want to right click and go to properties, go to libraries, and then right here you want to add external jars. All right, so you just want to grab the jar that you've downloaded. It may be on your desktop. This jar file is actually in another folder that I've created on my computer. So we just want to go to open. We have our jar. We just press OK. If you look down here, we have these reference libraries, and we have our JSON library. All right. So now the first thing that we need to do is to create an object. Now, if we look back at the JSON that I was talking about earlier, you can see it right here. This is a JSON right here. Now what we have to do is create an object that resembles the same structure of this JSON that we have here. So as I said before in my presentation slides, these two curly braces represent an object. And inside the object, we want to create data members associated with this particular object. So we have data member ID, name, price, and then a tags. So we're going to create that right now. And also note that this object doesn't have a name associated with it, so we can just name this object whatever we want. We're going to name this object my POJO. So what I want to do is to be able to still see this JSON while we're actually doing our implementation. All right. All right, so what we want to do first is actually go right here to our package, right click, and create ourselves a new class. And we're going to name this class my POJO. My POJO. Go to finished. All right, so inside my POJO, we're going to be adding these properties or these data members to this class. And it's fairly simple. So this is what we will do. We'll create an object which is right here with these two curly braces. Create our object, and now we're going to start creating our data members now. So for the first data member, it's going to be an int. So we're going to go public int ID. Simple, right? Next line, public string name. Next line, public float price. And then for the last property, we want to go public string tags and then array. All right, so we have each one of our data members, and it resembles this JSON that we have here. Now the goal is that we're going to create an object, and then we're going to convert that object to JSON using Jackson. So after we've added each one of our data members, we actually want to add getter and setter methods for each one of these data members that we've created. All right, so you just go down here, right click, go to source, generate getters and setters. Select all, go to OK. And press save, and we're pretty much done. That's really all we have to do to allow this my POJO object to resemble this JSON that we have right here. And that's pretty much it. So after that, we want to go back to our app.java class. And in this app.java class, what we need to do first would be to create this thing called an object mapper, which is going to be the main tool that we're going to be using to convert our object to JSON. So you want to go object mapper, name this mapper, equals new object mapper. All right, so after we do this, the next thing that we need to do is to create ourselves a my POJO object. So my POJO equals, now this object has to reference something. So we have to actually create the object and then set the values of this object. And what I'm going to do is actually create me another method within this particular class, and it's going to be called create dummy. All right, so this method is actually going to be used to construct our object. So we're going to go here, create a method, create dummy. And it's basically just going to return an instance of the my POJO object after all the values in this my POJO object have been set. So what we want to do is actually add each one of these values to the POJO object that we created here. So first of all, we need to go my POJO equals new my POJO. And then from here, we just want to set each one of our values. My POJO dot set ID. Then we want to pass in ID of 1, just like you see on the right side over here, 1. All right. Next thing, we want to set the name, my POJO dot set name. Now the name is going to be equal to a green door. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is set a price. My POJO dot set price, and then float 12.50. Set a float value for that. And then last but not least, we're gonna create ourselves this array, this tag. So my POJO dot set tags, and then this tags is actually going to be an array list of strings. So we want to go string tags equals, and from here we're just going to add 2 elements, home, comma, and we're also going to add green. I think this is all the tags. Yep, home and green. All right. And we just pass this into here. All right, and then for the last thing we need to do is just go my POJO, and this is going to be the value that we're going to be returning, my POJO. And this is pretty much it. This is how we've created an object. So what we've done here, we've created an object, and now we're just returning the object. But before we return it, we're setting values for each one of the properties within the object that we have just created. All right. So let's make this bigger. All right, let's maximize that. Now, we want to go back up here to our main method. So now that we have our object created with this create dummy method, and it's already populated with values, what we need to do now is actually create ourselves a JSON string. So we want to go string JSON string, which is going to be a string that holds all of our JSON. All right, so we can set this equal to null, or we can just simply, instead of setting this to null, we can just go, yeah, let's just set this for null for right now. All right. So what we need to do next is actually go to mapper.write value as string, and then from there we just pass in the POJO, my POJO that we have here. All right. So what it's complaining about here is that we need to get the try catch. So we just do this. Okay. So all this is surrounded by the try catch because these are the possible exceptions that could occur when translating this object to JSON or converting this object to JSON. And then simply right after that, the only thing we really need to do is just print out the JSON now. So sys out JSON string, and just save this. So everything is properly formatted. Saved it. Now we're pretty much done. Just to run through this again, we're using this object mapper, which is going to be used to help us convert objects to JSON. We also have created ourselves a POJO object in which we've created an object and we've populated all of the values or properties inside of that object. Now, after we've done that, we want to actually create ourselves a JSON string. So we're going to go mapper.write value as string and then pass my POJO object in here. So we're converting this to JSON. This is pretty much what this is doing. what this is doing. Mapper.write value as string. So it's taking the object and it's converting it to JSON. And then simply we're just printing out the JSON down here. So let's now run this application and see what we get. Java application. And this is exactly what we get, this JSON right here. So I can just copy this. And there's actually a tool online that you can use to actually format this JSON called JSON lint. And we can see with the picture that I had up earlier how these two pieces of JSON look the same. So we go to JSON lint. And you just want to paste here, paste. We can just validate JSON. We get the JSON is valid result down here, and this is exactly what it looks like. All right, as you can see with this price float, we're not getting 0. There's a way that we can go about appending that, but it's pretty much, stating the same, the same thing here. So we have an ID, which matches to the number. Then we have a name, a green door, and then we have price, 12.50, and then we have tags, which are home and green. And that's pretty much it. So this is just a simple example of how you would convert objects to JSON using the JSON library. All right, guys, so for the next part of this video, I'm going to be talking about some advanced JSON. So what we're doing, we're still converting objects to JSON, but as you can see here, this JSON is a bit more complex than a JSON that you've seen before. So as you can see, this JSON doesn't only have one object, but it has multiple objects. So when we go about creating our object, we would still have our data members. We'll create our data members, such as this schema, title, description, and type. They'll all be data members of the original object or of the POJO object. But then when we get the properties, this properties data member that we have in this original class is also going to consist of other objects. So when we create this data member properties, we would then have to create ourselves a properties class. And this properties class actually, or object, it starts here with this curly brace and it actually ends down here with this curly brace. And inside that properties class, we're going to have ourselves 4 objects: the ID, the name, the price, and the tags. And each one of these objects have their own separate properties inside of them. And I'm going to show you how to go about structuring this. Now, I know it may look a little bit confusing right now, but I think it'll make a whole lot more sense once we just jump right into the code. So let's start coding. All right, guys, so for this part of the video, we're going to be working with an empty project. I already have the JSON library already in here already. So what we need to do is actually take a look at this JSON that we have here. All right, now we have to construct objects that adhere to this JSON construction that we have. So just like I did in the last video, I'm going to first of all create myself a POJO object, file, well, right click, new, and we're going to go to class and POJO. All right, finish. All right, so the first object that we have is between these 2 curly braces that you see here. This opening curly brace and this closing curly brace. All right, and inside this object, we have properties. All these properties are in this object. So we have schema, we have title, description, type, we have properties, and then we also have required, which is going to be an array list. So let's start constructing these properties right now. So I'll go into POJO, and the first thing that I want to add, public string schema. All right, so the next one is title, public string title, then public string description, then public string type. And we also have this object called property. So public properties. Right? And we also have this data member down here, this property down here called required, which is going to be an array. So we're going to go public string array required. Right? Another good thing is that it's always good to make sure that the names of these properties match up with the properties that are in this JSON. You know, you want to make sure that they're consistent so you know exactly which parts of the JSON that you're trying to access. All right, so if you notice here, we have this error here, and it's saying that we haven't created a class yet. So we will have to create a class for this, create class properties, because I'll explain that in a minute. All right, so I don't think, well, before we even get to that, let's just create these getter and setter methods right now. So we want to right click, source, generate getters and setters, select all, and then go to OK. Save, and this is what we have. Let's move this over for a minute. F. Okay. As you can see here, we have each one of our properties that are in the My POJO. We have the schema, title, description, type properties, as well as require. And if you notice, we have to create a new class for properties. And the reason why we're creating this new class for properties is because there are other objects inside of this property class. You know, well, the reason why we're creating this properties actually is because we have these two curly braces. Remember how I said in an earlier video, these two curly braces represent an object. So wherever you see these curly braces, there has to be an object created. So with these curly braces that we have here, this is associated with the My POJO. These curly braces right here are going to be associated with the class named properties. And we have a properties class right here that I previously created. And inside this properties class, we're going to have another object that is called ID. So let's create that. And also in this properties class, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we have these 4 objects that need to be created. All right. So let's go into properties, and then we're going to go public ID, public name, public price, public tags, and we're also going to have 2, let's see, yeah, and that's pretty much it. Okay, so all right, so in this properties, these are all the objects that we have here. All right, so what we need to do now is actually create classes for each one of the properties that we have in here. So we want to do that now. We want to create class. Well, let's start off with ID. Create class ID. Create class for this. Exit that. We also want to create a class for name. Create class. Finish. Exit this for now. We'll come back to it. Create class for price. Finish. We'll come back to that. And create a class for tags. All right, so this properties class consists of these four objects. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4: ID, name, price, and tags. All these are objects. All right, so now what we need to do is to create getters and setter methods for each one of these properties. So we want to right click, go to source, generate getters and setters, select all, go to OK. All right, so with this properties class, we're pretty much done already. We have our data members as well as the getter and setter methods for each one of these data members. Okay, so in this ID class, now we have to go into the ID class. Now, if you see this ID class, it is an object, and inside this ID class, we have data members. Data member is a description. It consists of a description and a type. So we want to go to our ID class, and we want to add those data members. We want to go public string description. Then we have another data member, which is in this ID class called type. So public string type. And then since these are the two data members that are in this ID class, we just simply right click, source, getter and setter, select all, go to OK. Okay, the next class is the name. Let's go back here, open up the name class. Inside the name class, you see the two properties that we have in this name class, description and type. Public string description, public string type. And we once again want to add our getter and setter methods. Right click here, go to source, generate getters and setters, select all, go to OK. And we just do the same thing for the rest of these data members. So the next data member we have is price. So we go into our price class. Our next object actually we have is price. So we go into our price class and we want to add these three data members: type, minimum, and exclusive minimum. Okay, so public string type, public int minimum. And the reason I'm using int is simply because we have this 0 right here, which is a number value. And then the last one is public boolean exclusive minimum. Reason we're using boolean is simply because we have a true here. Right? And booleans are either true or false. All right, so pretty much done with this class. Just right click, go to source, generate getters and setters, select all, go to OK. So as you can see, there's a lot of repetition of generating these getters and setters when you're working with multiple objects. So we're done with price. Then we want to go to our last object in properties called tags. Go into tags. Okay. In this tags, what we have are these data members: the type data member, items, min items, and unique items. So you just want to create properties for that. Public string type, public items, so that this item, since this items is an object right here, we're going to be creating another object that is called items. All right, so the next data member in tags is going to be public int min items, then public boolean unique items. All right, first thing we want to do is go up here and make sure we create our class items. Go to finish. Exit that for right now. We'll get back to it. And from here, we just want to add our getter and setter methods. So go to source, generate getter and setter methods, select all, go to OK, Control Shift F. It's formatted everything, and we're pretty much done with this tags class. All right, but before we exit this tags class, we want to go to the items class. And in this items class, you can see we only have one data member, which is called type, and that is a string value. So public type, public string actually, type, and then we just want one data member in here, and generate getters and setters, select all, go to OK. Format, and this is pretty much it. So we've created, so with this properties, we've created the structure. So basically in these properties, we have each one of the objects in this property. So we have ID, name, price, and tags. And as you notice, this tags object that we have also consists of another object that is called items, which is what we created, and that items only contains one property called type. All right, I want to exit all this. Then we want to go back to app.java. All right, so we're pretty much going to do the same thing that we've done in my previous video. So we want to go up here and we want to add object mapper. Object mapper, mapper equals new object mapper. And then from here, we want to create a new object called myPOJO. MyPOJO equals, and then we want to do the same thing, create a method, create dummy, and then we actually want to create this method, and basically this create dummy method is going to create a new instance of the myPOJO with its populated information. All right, so we want to go in here and we want to start adding our information. So once again, I'm going to put this in a side-by-side type screen so we can see everything that we're going to be working with. So when we create our object, we're going to be setting the object equal to these values that we have here. Now, it's always good to realize that, remember, this video is when we're converting objects to JSON, how we go about converting objects to JSON. So you may not have this JSON right here. You'll probably have to write out some JSON that you would want to structure, and then you would create objects and then set values to those objects to construct a piece of JSON. So when it comes to converting objects to JSON, you probably will not be given this particular piece of JSON to follow as something that you would have to structure yourself. That's always good to keep note of. So now we need to start setting the properties of myPOJO. So we want to start right here, go myPOJO equals new myPOJO. And then we want to start setting each one of these properties. So we first of all want to start off up here with schema. All right. So we're going to go myPOJO dot set schema, and then this URL http://json org draft -4 schema. All right. So next thing we need to do is set the title. myPOJO dot set title product. myPOJO dot set description a product from Acme's catalog. Make sure you guys can see everything I'm typing here. I'm going to expand this a bit. All right, so next thing is the properties. So my POJO dot set properties. Now, let's see. Okay, so this may be a time where constructors do come in handy, because if you don't have constructors, you would have to actually create an instance of properties. Properties equals new properties, and then from there you will have to set the properties. ID. You actually want to set these other properties. Scroll down. Okay. Properties dot set name. Properties dot set price. Properties dot set tags. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is set the ID. All right. So we want to go set ID. All right. So we go ID equals new ID. And then want to set the properties for ID, which are the description. Unique identifier for a product. Okay, another thing that I actually forgot up here, let's jump up here for a minute, is type. I mistyped. So my POJO dot set type. Then you want to just set this to object. All right, let's go back down here to the ID. All right, so another thing that we need to set an ID is the type. We already set the description, so we need to now set the type. ID dot set type. And then this type would be an integer. All right, so we're pretty much done with this. Now we want to set the name. Name equals new name. Name dot set description, and then the name is going to be name of the product. Name dot set type string. Now we want to move on to price. Price equals new price. Price dot set type. Type of the price is a number. Set minimum. Now this is going to be 0. Dot set exclusive minimum. Now this is actually going to be true since it's a Boolean. All right. The last thing we got to set is the tags. Tags equals new tags dot set type array. We're also going to set items. As you can see down here, it consists of a property of items. So we want to go tags dot set items. Now for this, we're actually going to have to create a new items object, but we're going to get to that later. Tags dot set min items. Now this will be 1, and tags dot set unique items, which is true. All right, so for this items equals new items dot set type, and then for the items type, we're going to set that equal to what we see down here, which is a string. See? All right, string. And I think that's pretty much it as far as the properties goes. All right, so set items. So this items object is actually a part of tags. Okay, so we set all our properties, and now after these properties are set, the next thing we want to do is to just create this array down here, this required array. So we're going to go string required within the array, set this equal to an array with 3 strings. Name, and then the first one is going to be ID. And then my POJO dot set required will be required. All right. Then down here we just want to return the my POJO object, and that's pretty much it for the creating of the dummy element. So we've created an instance of my POJO, and we've assigned the values to my POJO so that it's able to create some JSON. Now, after we do this, we need to create ourselves a JSON string, just like I created in the previous video, and go mapper dot write value as string, and then my POJO. And then from here, I just need to actually surround with try catch. Now after this, I just simply print out the JSON. Save, and I've set all the values down here. Now let's just run the application, see what we get. All right, so we get this JSON down here. I'm going to copy this and just make sure that it matches up with the JSON that we have over here. All right, so you want to go here, JSON lint, paste. You want to validate that JSON and just make sure that we're getting the proper values so that they actually match up. So we have the schema, we have the product description, we have type, which is object properties, and then we have the IDs, description, as well as the type, the name, description, as well as the type. Then we have the price, the type, minimum, and then the exclusive minimum, which is true. Then we have the tags down here. We have the type, which is equal to an array, the items, which is an object that consists of a property called type, which is string, min items, that's 1, unique items, true, and then we have require, which is ID, name, and price. And that's pretty much how you convert an object to JSON. Just wanted to create this video just in case anybody's having any questions about it. Now, this is the end of the video. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video if you've learned something here. Also, don't forget to subscribe. And see you in the next one.